Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Queen's Hall Winifred Atwell Auditorium. We are making every effort to ensure that your theater experience is safe and comfortable. Please take this time to listen to the following announcements. Eating and drinking are not allowed in the auditorium. Smoking is not allowed in the building. Flash photography and any unauthorized audio or video recordings are strictly prohibited. In case of an emergency, an announcement will be made. You will immediately but calmly proceed to any of our 4 exits closest to you. 2 exits are located on the left and right lower hall. These exits will lead to the east and west emergency exits. Once through these exits, you will be required to move away from the building and assemble at the muster point furthest end of the south car park. The other 2 exits are located on the left and right upper level of the hall. Individuals exiting through the upper level will be required to move along the corridor, down the front stairwell toward the lobby area, and through the front entrance to assemble at the muster point to the furthest end of the south car park. In the event of an earthquake, if you are inside the auditorium, you are advised to lean forward or hold on to the seat in front of you or next to you. Please remain in your position. After the shaking has ended, the usher will guide you to exit the building as quickly and safely as possible. If you require any assistance, please seek the attention of the Queen's Hall's ushers. They will be more than willing to assist you. At this time, please put all cell phones on silent. Thank you, and again, welcome to Winifred Atwell Auditorium.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Welcome to our huddle here at Queen's Hall on stage. You know, sometimes a lot of us come to Queen's Hall and we sit in the audience. I thought it would be interesting for you to come through the gut of the stage and pass through the backstage and come in, so you have a little backstage experience. And then you come to meet with us. I'm Richard Young, and before I go any further, I want to acknowledge His Excellency William Bush, the Ambassador of Colombia, Trinidad and Tobago. Very nice to have you. I thought of this project because I feel sometimes we ignore some depth that we put into some projects. So this started kind of organically from doing a fashion show that I do called EWAAFRIKA for the Emancipation Support Committee. So last year, the theme of the show was called Conscious Threads. Usually, Abiyo Jackson, one of our guests this evening, is the host, and I embed in it a lot of storytelling so that the fashion is not just seen, it's felt, it's heard, experienced. And so last year with Conscious Threads, I thought we need to talk about what that means, you know. Another one of our guests, Wendell, performed at the show. So it's a huge tribe, in a way, of people working in the same vein. And so this year we called the show A Flair for Freedom, acknowledging the overarching theme of the Emancipation Support Committee's festival that was launched last Sunday. And it is dismantling colonial legacies and promoting, igniting African consciousness. So I kind of borrowed from that and called it A Flair for Freedom. And the flair is the flair of the igniting, but it also is the flair of the skirt. And it is aligned with its hominin flair of fashion. But here today we want to do a talk about what is freedom, and are we free, and if we are not, how do we pursue accessing it? It might be quite an ambitious prospect, because who really knows what freedom is? But we certainly can aspire to it, and we also know when we are not free. Even if we do know, we don't know what freedom completely is. I think I have an interesting panel, and it was well curated because this is a tapestry of voices that come from different walks of life, and what I want them to do is share biographically their access points to it, how they use their platforms and their pursuits to go after creating liberating space and liberating energy, and all of them have done so in the past in various forms. So I will start by soft introductions. To my far left is Rubadiri Victor, who is a multidisciplinary practitioner in theater, in art, in multimedia, and definitely an activist, because he rallies for all of us creatives when we have lobbying issues, policy, with respect to government agencies, and just to have one voice, which is necessary. Then we have Abiel Jackson, who has a Jamet discourse that gives us a new understanding of what a Jamet is in our history. And she is an actor, a creative producer, a television and radio host, and just a passionate creative. Then we have Dr. Kevin Adonis Brown, and his work is particularly interesting to me because he works in rhetoric and poetry and poetics. And he is, in his own way, trying to access a liberating space to understand our identities through his work. And he is going to share some of that with us. We move to Giselle Carr, who is a member, together with myself, on the BCRC team, which is the Basel Convention Regional Conference, which is part of the essence of this discussion. She is a sustainability advocate and has a track record around the world of working in environmental sustainable practice. Then we have Zakia Uzoma Wadada, who is the executive director of the Emancipation Support Committee. And again, she also has a multidisciplinary background, because when I first met her, she was a textile artist. And she worked in rural development, and now she is very, very, very versed in organizational strengths. And then we have Wendell Manwaring. Wendell Manwaring as well, if people know him from Tree Canal, but Wendell is what I like to call a theatrician, if I can coin the word, because it's theater in many ways, and he is kind of a disruptor and a griot. And I love what he does with his work. It's always probing thought. So, the first thing I want to do is to acknowledge the Queen's Hall for allowing us this space. I think they should get a round of applause. They have been really, really, really cooperative with my craziness, that some people might say. Some people say, come and use the hall as it is. I don't want to use the hall as it is. I want to find ways of making it memorable. I want to find ways of diversifying the use. And that's part of what we're going to talk about today as well. You don't have to be stuck in a rut doing it one way all the time. Yeah, I also want to acknowledge the Basel Convention, because the Basel Convention, I've just been given the post of stakeholder consultant. Giselle Carr is the communications consultant, and we are to find ways of changing the paradigm, altering mindset about how we do our practices in the creative sphere, because we do a lot of toxic, harmful ways of creating beauty. So it's not supposed to be pretty at all costs. It's supposed to be beauty without harm, which brings up ethical, responsible, and sustainable things, which is the same thing as dismantling colonial legacies to me. All right, so, and I also want to acknowledge the National Carnival Commission, because they have helped us with our infrastructure, which is important to create this little hearth. Okay? Great. So I think I've done all my responsibilities, and we should get right into it. So I want to find out from you in the audience, what comes to mind if one is asked, are you free? And as I used yesterday, quite jokingly, I don't want to have a situation like I just saw Kevin Hart's Funny AF, and one of the mandates that he put on to the comedians was that they have to interface with the audience. And so they would jolt it on the stage because sometimes they threw to the audience and the audience looked at them like that. So no jokes could have been spun. So no response could be had. So I want to have a voice. I want to hear what you have to say. And then we start answering to it. So that's my method. And I don't want to feel like a school teacher, well, you. Yeah? Anybody? There is one. We'd appreciate if you stand, and this is not me being a school teacher. I think cameramen would love to see who is speaking.
Hi,
Yeah?
good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to our panel.
Good afternoon.
Growing up, my mom always used to tell us, you are free to make your choices, but you're not free from their consequences.
Okay. Free to make choices, but you're not free from consequences. We're holding on to some of the thoughts, and then we're going to throw it at our panel, our esteemed panel, and they will move the thought along. Yes, there is another hand.
Yeah, Simeon Oladele from Nigerian High Commission. There's this saying that they will say is a very free word, but it all depends on if you are free yourself, because there are some limitations that people face in life. So you have to free your mind, free yourself, and for you to have a way forward in the journey of life. So it's a very free word, but are you really free yourself?
Yeah, so he's speaking to individual freedom, even if there is this collective notion that the world is free. I'll take one more comment.
Yes.
Yes?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening to the
evening.
panel as well. I am Miss Earth International Trinidad and Tobago 2026.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me. I believe that freedom is when you feel light just as a feather. There's nothing on your chest heavy. Freedom is when you feel at peace. So if you can create something and it makes you feel peaceful, you have achieved freedom in creation.
Okay, so we got freedom aligned with peace, because if you can access peace, you can have your freedom. There's one more. I don't want to cut it short, but I want our panel to be ready to respond.
Hi, good day to the panel. I am Melba. And for me, I am going to be hardcore, because I don't think it's no freedom, especially for African people. Thank you.
Okay. So the revolution has started.
We have one more. Yes.
Yes, there's one more. Yes, that looks like it has activated the space.
Good evening, everyone. I want to concur with my colleague here that there is no freedom. What we have is an illusion, to my mind, of freedom, but there's actually no freedom. I mean, let's look at what is transpiring right now in our country with respect to the incident involving Kia Sili and Joshua Samaru. If there was freedom, then why are people being suppressed and oppressed into defending what they believe or standing up for what they believe was an injustice? So there's no freedom. There is an illusion of freedom, and that's my thought about it.
It's picking up momentum. Okay, this is the last one, because I want to get on to the panel. I can't remember all the thoughts now, because I usually go with 3 and then we speak to it. Yes?
I was looking, thank you so much, good evening to everyone, those are members of the panel. Everyone, good evening. This is a poem that I wrote. I'll just read from it, that I'm always writing stuff like this, and it said, compound words hold the key, then the truth you shall see. Words like capital, lies, social lies, created to mess up our head. This is the food we were fed. From small they tell us what to think, not allowing the cup of knowledge for us to drink. They say we were given freedom, but I heard a man say that means we were free to be dumb.
Thank you. Thank you. Round of applause. That's original poetry. All right. I like when your audience goes into choral speaking when they were shouting Joshua Chamberlain's name. I say that means it's really in the zeitgeist. So I want to look at the freedom of, you may have freedom of choice, but you're not free for your consequences. And I'm going to do any, mini, miny, mo. Abeo is going to tackle that, and then we're going to move on.
Greetings, everyone. Greetings. Before I begin, it's always very, very important for me to contextualize in just some small way who I am so that you would understand from whence my answers are coming. So yes, my name is Abeo Aisha Christabel Jackson, sixth-generation American from the lineage of Amphi and Bashana Jackson. And it is always very, very important for me to start and contextualize anything that I'm doing, saying, creating, etc., because there is nothing that I can say, do, or create without standing on the shoulders of my ancestors. Yes? Yes. All right, Asheru. I am an Orisha Ifa devotee, and inside of our belief system, because it's not a religion, it's a cosmology, there's the idea of choice and consequence. We are not about sin. We don't believe in sin. We believe in choice and consequence. We believe that you make a decision before you enter this realm about what you're supposed to do here. What is your mission when you get here? And your work when you reach here is to remember what it is. Now, there are many things that happen in life that can sometimes derail you from your mission, but it is always about getting back on track. Freedom is a very complicated thing. It's a very nuanced thing. We are and everything that you all have said resonates in very real and meaningful ways. There are no wrong answers. So yes, freedom has to do with peace and self-actualization and finding and creating ways of intentional peace and joy individually. Freedom also has to do with what we do within our communities. Understanding your mission and your role in your community and how do you actualize that, especially in the time that we are in now, the revolutionary time that we are in now. We are inside of a revolution. We don't necessarily fully clock it yet. We aren't fully languaging it yet, but that's where we are. So in terms of the perpetual quest for freedom. When we think about emancipation as melanated, as Black Afro-descended people, sometimes we think of it as a historical event. But emancipation was not a full stop. Emancipation is ellipses. The great Tony Hall spoke about emancipatory and liberatory practice within the context of creation. So to be an artist is to be an advocate, and to automatically be a revolutionary. And if it is you're not inside of that language and that thinking, then you're wasting time. I say that unapologetically, especially in the time that we are in now. So to be free, to be emancipated, to be liberated, it is ongoing. It is continuous. Resistance isn't necessarily something that you expect to be your full lived experience, because we don't want to be resistant to our whole life. We're tired. We also want rest. We also want joy. We also want ease, yes? But all of those things are inside of the quest towards freedom, the ongoing quest towards freedom. And yes, there's an illusion, because the system in which we're operating is not going to give us the tools to deconstruct it. It's not going to gift us that. So our education system deals in weaponized ignorance, right? So it's not going to gift us that. So we as community, understanding our individual roles in our community, whether it's a healer, an artist, a warrior, a medicine man, a Obia woman, a Jamet, or whatever it is you are inside of your community, all of that is part of the quest towards the ongoing quest towards freedom and liberation, which is very complicated. So yes, there's the individual, yes, there is community, and yes, all of that is operating inside of a system, and I'm going to say it, we operate inside of a capitalist system, which is in conversation with colonial systems, right, which is in conversation with what we now call decolonization, or as I prefer to say, on-colonization. Yes, all of those things are operating together, and we have to stop thinking about things in silos. So Joshua and Kaya, Joshua, may he walk in power, and Kaya, and how things are being suppressed right about now where that is concerned, and where we are being told that something is something else when we clearly saw what the something was. All of that is operating inside of those constructs in terms of what is freedom, what is the illusion of freedom, and how do we as individuals and community continue on that quest. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, good.
Okay. Wendell, chime in here.
Oh. And everything I will say, but just to put myself in context, I just a little red fella from Belmont who ended up discovering that I had a voice and was not afraid to use that voice, and then end up being part of one of our greatest celebrations of freedom without quite understanding what I was involved in, and had to make it my business to understand what I was involved in. So for 30 years, we made songs in celebration of the Juve, in celebration of our liberation, in celebration of our commemoration of the emancipation movement that transformed the space and the society forever. But in doing so, we were constantly up against a kind of willful ignorance and a desire to not know and to just operate on assumptions. And it was important for me and for us to challenge those assumptions continuously. And having done that for a long time and realized we do it for 30 years, and we say, well, we don't want to spoil it, 30 is good, bring down the curtain. And there's a void within self. But one of the things that I found it very difficult was to be a part of this celebration of our liberation and our emancipation, and to be going against a tide of people who just want to jam and wine and have a time, enroped, and some of them encased in fencing. It was too troublesome and tiresome to the spirit. And then we used to have to fight to get in the savannah. And at one point I say to myself, well, this is the emancipation movement being relived every time. Yeah? And I remember there was a particular carnival where I saw the policeman putting his hand on his gun to unhost it. And I tell myself, but this man, he can't be planning to shoot me here today. And even if I was afraid, the hundreds and the thousands of people that were behind me, pushing and heaving and hoeing to get inside the savannah, was the thing that afforded me the ability to stand my ground in that moment. And it not only afforded me to stand my ground, but it actually transported me past him. I didn't have he to study, right? Because by then they'd done push down the gate, and we were on our way to the stage that they tried for years to deny us access to. Why? Is we stage, and it's Juve morning. Is we Juve morning, and this is how we choose to celebrate our Juve. But it was something we had to endure year after year after year after year after year. And it's something that, as I said, brought me and the people that participated in our Juve band tremendous joy and fulfillment and replenishment. But after a while, my mortal vessel just couldn't take it no more. Which doesn't mean that I'm not concerned with freedom. I'm deeply concerned with freedom. I just find myself inside my little hole watching these days, reading plenty, trying to make sense of what's going on around me. And part of what we do every year in making songs is trying to make sense of what's going on around us. And we find that, the radio station don't have time for it, but that don't concern me. We keep doing what we're doing. We keep on keeping on because we believe in what we believe in, and we're not prepared to surrender that, just so. But the idea of freedom is not devoid of responsibility.
That's right.
Yeah?
That's right.
And it was very much being in full-on dragon mode on a Juve morning to ensure that we got from where we started to where we wanted to end. For me, that was what was important. Nothing else mattered. We were making our ritual circle around our city to bring healing. Because I read somewhere that that's what the Bangoro tribe in Africa did with their feathers on their head, going around their little village and their community to bring healing. And we infused those things into what we did. Whether everybody else was doing it or not, it didn't matter to me. it was important, and for those people that we interact with, to bring these things to the table year after year. Yeah? I remember encountering a family who were part of a group called Tall Man Foundation, and handsome young men. They had just been introduced to us, and they came with all kinds of issues, right? But one of the things that intrigued me was what they did for Carnival prior to hooking up with us. And one of them said, boy, I just used to hold rope and wind up on them whiteys. And I said, well, henceforth that shall not be happening, not in my presence. I said, you're way more than that. And what he told me the other day, he wanted to bring his own jury band. And that is what it's about. And he wanted to bring his own jury band as a response to what's happening with the jury bands around us. Because a big part of why we wanted to bring our own jury band is because the jury started to get very pretty and corporate. Royal Bank used to bring a little Hawaiian band, and, you know, and you have a little smudge here and a little smudge there, and you're going down the road. I grew up in Belmont. I grew up in Merida. At 9 years old, I was introduced to Juve, and I thought I was going to dead, and it was the most delightful thing. But I didn't dead. There was blood, and I was banned from Juve until I was big enough to decide to go back in for myself. So I constantly reference the Juve, the emancipation, the Camboulé as one of those signal moments and signal opportunities for us to reinvest in and reinvigorate and reignite the torch of resistance and spark up the fire so that we have the energy to deal with the shit for the rest of the year. Yeah?
So do you think that the word delight you said, and there was a joy, I think you mentioned, and I think Bio talked about it, so we can have moments of freedom. Is that little sense of fulfillment there in those bouts, are those free moments? And I remember reading somewhere, the other side of fear is where freedom begins. It's not unnecessarily accessed. And I want us to be in charge of the fact that we want to talk about the ethical, the responsible, and the sustainable practices that we need to do in this pursuit, as Obey said. It's a continuous process. And I have to make the alignment felt because I have this responsibility, me, the moderator, of talking about colonialism and twinning it almost with how we produce our creative mass and we do our fashion. Sometimes we do it pretty at all costs, and we need to be beauty without harm. That's kind of what we need to impart, and that also is part of the decolonizing, I think, that we just don't do the things within the capitalist structure and only have the maximization of profit as the only deciding factor for choices. And I want to bring in Giselle here because sustainability is really her forte, and there's a phenomenal wealth of experience working. I mean, I read somewhere where millions of trees, she was part of a team that reforested the planet with millions of trees. So, Giselle, I want you to jump in here and talk about what our mission is. Talk about how that is aligned to the decolonization that is required.
Sure.
Because I think that is what affects that capitalist ethic of which Abeo spoke is part of what is not a relic, but it really is what is causing the construct that keep us confined.
Yes. So I will say that as the panelists were speaking, as Abeo was speaking, and as Wendell was speaking, and the members of the audience were speaking, I feel the pain, and I think we all feel it, so it must be acknowledged. And two things about freedom occurred to me. One is that it's a huge responsibility because, like Abeo, when I think of my ancestors, I think to myself, wow, compared to them, I am living the life of a queen. I have all these resources at my disposal. I have my ability to leave my home and have a career that I wish for. I don't have to be married, or I don't have to be, chained to some other system, right? And what that means is, wow, what will you actually do with your will? What will you actually do with that sense of responsibility? And so instead of asking yourself, what is the least you could do for the planet, I started to ask myself, what's the most I could do? And so things like planting the trees and so on, I will admit, I'm a designer by trade. It happened by accident. I met a group of women online, and I started to work with them, as women do. And needless to say, one thing led to another, but their mandate was to empower women everywhere in the world and to, reforest the tropical belt across the globe. And so in 2 years, we planted 7 million trees together. And I will say I did that from right here. I didn't have to go anywhere. And it was COVID times too. So I really do believe that each one of us carry that seed of possibility inside of ourselves. And I think right here in Trinidad, the incredible confluence of cultures that we have, the blessings that we have as a people, sometimes we miss those things in the hustle of every day and in the brainwashing that is thrown at us constantly, that we are nothing and that, that we are bad in some way. And it hurts even to see it. Because when I look at Trinidadians, I see the strongest people I've ever seen in the world, quite frankly. So when I think about things like sustainability, Richard, yourself and myself, now we're working with BCRC on the removal of harmful chemicals from the entire carnival fashion value chain, which is to say, it's a huge mandate, right? Absolutely. That the team has to work on, and as Richard said, stakeholder engagement, communications. What I found fascinating about the communications aspect of it is that the UN and the Basel Convention have acknowledged the toxicity of the communications even by itself, in the way that people enmesh fashion communication in their identity. Could you imagine? So you're consuming this thing. Could you imagine the way that you can plant this seed inside someone's mind that wearing a particular type of costume, etc., is your identity, and how toxic that identity is, right? So I kind of think of myself in a way as just, a glitch in the matrix. I show up whether I'm supposed to be there or not, because I know that's part of the discomfort of my presence. I know my message could be a little terrifying at times, but I know that what is waiting for us on the other side of those efforts towards sustainability, if we do not do it, it's worse. It's worse than so much that we can imagine. So this is my, I guess, my contribution, what I stand for here today. And I know that the work that we're doing in BCRC, I really believe it will make an impact. I really believe so.
This is one of our efforts to start bringing the conversation to this place. I'm attempting to twin it with the decolonizing thought process. So I want Zakia to come in now to talk about what is decolonization to you. And I know you come from a grounded space in our history. The emancipation is, yesterday you were on panel and you became so animated and so passionate about your own childhood, and how you perceived and how the trajectory that followed that makes you so passionate about this particular agenda.
So, there are so many thoughts in my head. I want to take, it registered with me when the two members of the audience said that as Africans we are not free. Mm-hmm. And trying to, and understanding that there are some of us who are in that space. So whereas some of us who are having this conversation can theorize and have some clarity around this issue of freedom, there are some of us that it is not even something that they actually perceive that is part of their existence. I want, and sometimes it is just like consciousness. So the theme is both igniting African consciousness and dismantling colonial legacies. This morning I had an experience. There was a woman, I dropped my granddaughter to St. Francois Girls Secondary School. There was a woman who was having trouble with her vehicle, a gentleman, I don't know who it was, I don't know who the driver was, but somebody was having trouble with his vehicle. And therefore was sort of, she did, like whatever was happening, the vehicle was not moving. And they pushed, there were about 3 cars lined up to come out of the school. And the young man in the car that would have been considered the kind of car, it's not the modern hybrid car. He flew out of his car. He was second in the row and ran into the street. The kind of person that the police will stop and profile and figure he's some kind of, yes, that is how the young man looked. And then, as he was doing it, another one was coming down the street, and he just joined him, because obviously the car was not moving and it needed to be pushed. Nobody asked anybody. Nobody implored. It is just this natural instinct of their being that allow them to say, someone is in trouble, I must help. And that is still part of our community. I live in Gonzales. And we call it Gonzales, and people tend to pray on the gun part, because I live in a space where there is gun violence. But I had an experience where I was at home, and there was a fire that erupted in my home. And it is the same Gonzalians, those youth men, ran into that house and saved my house. And they are the same people, if they see somebody doing, the same brothers who they were walking with a gun and so on, they have a certain kind of respect and regard for the people in their community. Unless something went awry between them and someone, that is a natural response. And I'm saying all of these things is because they are not living in the space of consciousness to understand their being and who they are to the extent where they are able to take control. So they are actually just reacting and responding from their natural space. So to me, if we do not know ourselves, or we have not given the opportunity to know ourselves, then that freedom, you see, because if man know thyself, I would think of people like Kunta Kinte, because there was something within him that the enslavers were not able to take away from him. In the midst of his enslavement, he felt free. In the midst of the pain that he was experiencing, he still felt free, because there was something inside of him made him be able to say, my name is Kunta Kinte. You get what I'm saying? So that man has to know thyself. You know, we have to know ourselves so that we can find freedom in the midst of the enslavement, that we can find freedom in the midst of the oppression, that we can find freedom in the midst of all of the devastating things that are happening around us. And therefore that gives us the power to fight. You know, it gives us the power and the freedom to fight. You see, so many of us just don't feel that we have that capacity to fight, because we still have absorbed the colonial messages that have been given to us about who we are. You know, and we have to begin to teach our people who they are. If Africans knew who they are, they would be unconquerable. You see, but we have to not, but they even, and we know they started on the continent, but it started because of the kind of young man who just run to give help to people. So that when somebody is coming with a negative, but you are still receiving it, I'm like, okay, I don't know, you're so good now, but you're looking kind of strange, but you look human, you have the same body parts like me or whatever. So maybe we can talk, or we can engage, but that was not the intention of the strangers. The intention of the strangers was to come and to capture and to take. Africans never thought about gold and all of that. Gold was ours to dress up in, to wear, you know. It wasn't something that we had to fight for. But then somebody comes and sees us and I want that. And for me to get it, you have to fight in order to get it. So I'm just trying to put the freedom within the context of our historical experience. You see? And therefore, without that framework and understanding of our power and our beauty, our spirituality, our culture, and all that it means, all Africans who have been part of the enslavement process, some of them even on the continent of Africa have been denied that, and thus denied an essential component of their freedom. So when Wendell does what he does, and Abio does what he does, and also always in culture, it's always in the culture that you find the resilience and the messages of freedom. Because this is where we begin to feel and to try experience that freedom, because we're going back into a space where we really are free to be. You know, so this is my understanding on the colonializing, the uncolonizing. I have accepted Abby's word, because I think I understand her message is that the uncolonization is really about us freeing our minds from all of those legacies that have been imposed on us and have made us believe are normal. You know, and believe that that is how life is, and that is the only way it is. We have to be willing to have the freedom to explore and go deeper than ourselves, and to help those who are not able to do so. You know, because once we get to know ourselves, we will find the space where we can be free. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that the resistance, the rebellion could be called like a struggle, because it's a continuous thing. And it harks back in my head to a Greek character called Sisyphus. And you're pushing that rock up the hill, knowing almost it's going to roll back down, but you have to do it. And that leads me into my friend Rubaderi, because he has been persistent, constant. One of the things I know he does is the Artists Coalition for Trinidad and Tobago, as probably one of the only consolidated voices that wants to approach institution and status quo to say, this is what we need, listen to us to shape our going forward when you're doing things that with us in mind. And I think one of to use our term in for Giselle and I, using the colonizers, past that take, create, and waste, extractive kind of process. And that's one of the things we are trying to do by bringing back a circularity model in the way we use our creative goods. So I pass you on now to Rubaderi Victor.
Okay, right. I'm going to try and bounce off a lot of the things that were said here. Again, big context to come to current day things. So the modern world as we know it is formed 500 and something years ago, when white Western Europe leaves their shores and they basically invade the rest of the planet, right? Asia, the Americas, Africa, the Pacific, everywhere. Over the next course of 300 and something years, 400 years, almost 1 billion people are slaughtered across the planet in some of the most, you can't even imagine the kinds of things that happen. Plant and animal life, all kinds of things. Series of systems are set up. One part of it is white supremacist. It is white over brown over black. This is enshrined in politics, social mores, religion, in the education, every single institution. This hierarchy is set up. Access to everything, who is animal, who is 3/4 human, who is 1/4, who is, rigid hierarchies, punishable by death. This happens all over the planet, and the resistance begins in each of these invaded spaces, right? And of course, plant and animal life is being impacted. These things are profoundly anti-human, anti-nature, all of these kinds of things. They're gendered readings of the entire human family that are dropped on everyone, patriarchal norms and all kinds of different kinds of things are placed. That is the beginning of the modern world, right? The capitalist hegemony accompanies all these things, the materialization of all matter, the removal of the sacred, the death of the sacred. More and more, the sacred leaves the world, and things become things. And also, this is the thing that we're talking about, that spread over planet Earth. And as I said, the resistance from the black and brown and yellow and red peoples and stuff to this, who all had some of their problems too. I mean, some patriarchal things, different kinds of things. Everybody had their problems, but nothing quite on that scale of the mammoth scale that becomes industrial, that we're talking about, that takes over the planet. The largest theft in human history happens. An entire hemisphere is stolen. I mean, what are we talking about? An entire hemisphere is stolen. There are people in remand yard for thief in mango. For 5 and 6 years waiting for a case for thief in mango. An entire hemisphere, and we're still dealing with all the repercussions of these things. And so glorious resistance happens across all peoples. Some are more successful than others. Native Americans, people get it really hard. There are people who have gone extinct. There are hundreds of nations of people who are now extinct. And in our particular instance here in the Caribbean, we are ground zero for the loci of the real creation of the engine of that modern world. So we are the place where capitalism, ground zero of capitalism happens, right? Where nature and the human being become product and codified as that, where the first global corporations are created, where the idea of globalization and global capital is created. It all happens here. It is us. We are the location of this thing. I had a dream once. Well, it wasn't a dream. It was something was sent in a dream, and it's like a Native American kind of animal spirit took me out from some place and carried me and dropped me in what was a forest. And I was told, pay attention to what is about to happen. And all of a sudden, I was with a whole set of guys, and we were running, and we were escaped, enslaved people. Men and horses came and stuff. We were captured and bound. And so at the same time, I am Rubadiri. I'm starting to have the memories of like a 30-something-year-old person who lived in that. And so we're completely bound, like completely, everything tight, like you could not. We've been carried like how you'd carry a crab. Jeez. These men, eh? And we tossed on the side, and so we're all lying down there waiting. And the thing that I remember thinking, that I say, like, I'm a student of history at the university level, all these different kinds of things. What I was experiencing at that moment is the thing that I've never seen in any text, I've never seen in any fiction or anything, was what I was experiencing was I was seeing what it felt, I was feeling what it felt like for a human being who for their entire lives, their entire being has been confined. But the thing that, the other part of it, is seeing another human being living their life to their fullest, whilst you are completely confined. So I mean, I say, like, we could not move. We were completely bound. And these men were riding horses and stuff. They were laughing, they were talking, they were with their women, and there was something about that cellular thing, that visceral, existential thing of second by second knowing in that your entire life is bounded by never being able to make a decision that is sovereign. And watching, but the violence was having to watch another person live it completely in front of you. And that was something, and so I remember the beings telling me, like, listen, watch, understand, see what's happening. Other things happened. We were taken to this thing, and they put these cages on our heads, and our tongues were in cages as well, right? These things. And so we were all there waiting. There was this guy next to me, and we were there, and they were laughing, they were talking, you know, all those kinds of things, and they were like, some of us were going to die, right? And they were like deciding, I suppose, and yeah, but they were getting kicks, and they were laughing and whatever. And it was just, again, that thing of, because we had just run away, because we had something inside our belly that was calling freedom, that was calling to us, despite everything, despite what we would have seen before that happened to all those who did it before or whatever, but we had to do it. We had to run. And now we are back here with these cages, these things that were confining our whole heads with all these things, and our tongues inside of another, right? The guy next to me he was getting on and those kinds of things. He looked like Sir Horace Ove, you know, that he looked like. Yeah. And he just couldn't take it. And one of the guys came and they sliced off his tongue. Right? Because he was making all this noise despite whatever. And he fell to the ground and he was bleeding out. And I was there, you know, like, and I just started shouting as much as I could shout, because my tongue is in this thing that I am a man. I am a man. I am a man. I am a man. As I'm doing that, because the thing that's on it, it's sharp, right? It has blades on this thing, and yet completely dehydrated. So parts of my tongue are being cut off as I'm saying that. I'm feeling, you know, like it's slicing through, and these things dropping and that kind of stuff. And I wake up. I remember there was one of the top museums on the planet in terms of antebellum and slave historiography. They had brought an exhibition to Trinidad. This museum was known for like incredible multimedia immersive exhibitions and all those kinds of things. And it was happening at the National Museum. And so those of us who were interested in such things wanted to experience this thing, who were interested in curation and, you know, museumology and stuff. So I wanted to see this exhibition. Finally got time and got to the museum, got inside, and all it was 8 kind of posters, right? So we were like, is this the the hype of this museum was like, the exhibitions and that kind of stuff. So I was like, everybody disappointed. You walk through the door and they're kind of disappointed. It's like, all right, there's these 8 posters and stuff. So start at 1 to 8, start to read. By the third line, I was in tears. I mean, so their level of curation in terms of, the uncovering of history and those kinds of things. I mean, so they were just detailing, this is what an average day was. And this is proper research and those kinds of things, but and those kinds of things. This is, I mean, we cannot picture. There's just, I mean, there was inside of that we learned that, they loved gator hunting in Miami, in Florida, and that kind of stuff. And to hunt the gators, they would use African babies. They would throw African babies into the water to bring the gators, the alligators, the crocs, for them to, I mean, and I just this is by the third sentence, I was in a mess. And I watched everybody come through with the same kind of thing. Everybody come in this is the place, this is the exhibition, that whatever, and everybody kind of disappointed. And the same reaction by the third line. And we all going through, oh God. I mean, I'm just going through this. And I was I seen boy, if them boys in Laventille would read this, they would not. There's instant change, You cannot be the same, if you know this. So, closing that. So, the thing is, this moment right now, to bring it all forward to this moment right now, we're living at a moment where it's the return of the feudal age, right? So we're back to the rich get richer, exorbitantly richer, and the poor get dead. They live in the age of the 1% and that kind of stuff. 0.001% own 50% of the wealth of the planet, kind of thing. And every day that increases, that's increasing. And that's been accompanied by hardcore right-wing kind of movements and those kinds of things. At the same time, we know and we sense that empire is falling, that enterprise that began 500 years ago, that all the tonnage of resistance from all these peoples and that kind of stuff, that the things, the foundations of it are shaking. But we don't quite know how it's all going to turn out, right? That when it falls, what does it take with it? And how do we survive it? And in what kind of condition? But we know that it is. And so what it is really happening, because the thing is that, most of us here, we are the ones who lived through a kind of small oasis that was only about 4 decades long, 4 or 5 decades long, where there was something called a middle class. There was something looking like peace, like a large swaths of peace across large swaths of the planet and those kinds of things. There was something that looks like civic justice that has been enshrined in legal systems after centuries of fight and those kinds of things, and it pertained. It is policed and those kinds of things. That is an aberration in the West. That is a 4-decade aberration, post-Second World War. That's not the history of the hundreds and the 1,000 years before. That was a window that happened because of the culmination of resistance and of all these other forces that came, forces of freedom that visited this thing and won that space that all of us now erupt in, that we could have a gathering like this and just look around us. Let's look. This is 100 years ago. This is impossible to believe. The thing that I just described is about 160 something years ago, right? you could not tell anybody like that. You could not tell that person with the cage on the head and that kind of stuff. It's like, in 160 years, we're doing a project right now where we've identified that Diego Martin could call itself the home of Calypso. Why? Because the first 6 Calypsonians in the historical record came from plantations in Diego Martin. Groja, Papa Cushaw, Son, Hannibal the Mulatto, right? These are estates of enslaved Africans in Diego Martin. Calypso is in fact born in the caves at the top of Covey. That's an incredible origin myth. Only Trinidad will have an origin myth like that for its music and then do nothing with it. Not even understand how powerful that is. So we made a pilgrimage to find caves and all these other kinds of things. So these things are born in these caves under the great house of Begarat, who in the vernacular history is called a vampire because he is so cruel. He's evil, right? Him and Picton are best friends, right? These are men, you're talking about heads on poles from Cocorite all the way down to Diego Martin and that kind of stuff for people who talk back and who make a little, who flare up and that kind of stuff, No. Lessons have to be learned here, right? At the same time that is happening, Grosjean and them are inventing this form in the early 1800s, right? Less than 200 years after that, less than 100, a little more than 100 years after that, there are 300 Trinidad-style carnivals on planet Earth. There's one Venice Carnival, one Brazil Carnival, one New Orleans Carnival. There are 300 plus Trinidad-style carnivals on planet Earth. The 2 largest street festivals on planet Earth and the Western world are Trinidad-style carnivals. Brooklyn, Notting Hill. 4 million people at their height on those streets. If 4 black people get together on those streets, in those metropoles, there's cause for police action. You're like, how do you have 4 on the corner of Bleecker? And we have 4 million, and they can't do anything about it. They have to negotiate with it. Those Grosjean, Sansan, Papa Cushaw, and those things in these caves under this monster singing these songs changed the world. 300 Trinidad-style carnivals with $15 billion. Millions of people moving like that across the planet and stuff. Gwendal talks about it, the minutiae of it, of what that does for community in Belmont and stuff as a lifeblood, as a pulse, as a those kinds of things. Inside of Grosjean's belly, that song is born and takes over the planet. Who could imagine that? We want to talk about freedom. I mean, who could imagine the power of that? Could you tell Grosjean, while he's singing that song inside there with half his friends' heads on flicking poles, turning and spinning around, coming around the corners into that space, that the thing that he's singing now is going to have that damage and do that work? That is the power. That is freedom. That a being under the lash like that will, with sovereignty, still act with agency, despite everything, knowing that even the next syllable could be his last, and still uttering it into the planet and letting it do its work. And so that is the testimony. That is what we have to do and continue to do, and liberate the space so that all of those Grosjeans have the opportunity and the space and the platform to continue to utter and do. And so that's what my work is. That as an activist, that is what my work is. I believe in that thing. People say the 20th century is the American century or the century of technology or whatever. I say it is the century of African golden ages, African diasporic golden ages, right? The 20th century was the age of pan, mass, calypso, limbo, stuff, of reggae, high life, hip hop, jazz, pop, blues, stuff. As in the words of my late elder Tony Hall, who we invoking again and again tonight and stuff, these were not just forms of music. These are ways of seeing that changed the world. These are the things that humanize the planet. And each time one of those revolutions was happening, those revolutions of sound, of drum, they were accompanied by social revolutions. Serious social revolutions that changed everything. The entire civic architecture of the modern world is African. We fought for it to be lived, so that this thing about like that, people didn't used to do that in Asian cultures and white cultures, just that touch. The thing about that sensual kind of inhabiting of the body and those kinds of things. These are alien things, you know? When Elvis be trying to be black on this thing and they tell him Ed Sullivan, just do not shoot him below the waist. Do not, for whatever you do not, and for whatever reason, the Orisha, tilt that camera down for 3 seconds. When his waist just did that. And that was the end of Judeo-Christian Western Moors in the Western world. 3 seconds of a hip going like that, a white boy trying to be black. 1, 2, 3, and that kind of stuff, and it was over. Sexual revolution, everything collapses. Grosjean in the cave. I'll end it there.
Part of what I feel, and I introduced you with that constant struggle, is that I feel out of all of the atrocities, I think the Caribbean space is, we're the New World space, and we could try to template something that the world can follow, which is what you're saying, that we have the resilient ability to do.
Oh, I should just say the last thing there. That last piece is that the Caribbean of all the spaces, we are the ones who, because we are more majority in these spaces and that kind of stuff, that we were able to kind of remember things in a different way. So we had the freedom in the belly, but we were able to actually fight in these landscapes and win in a way that white, like black Americans who are surrounded and outnumbered could not. And we have been able to author a particular kind of civilization based on that impulse that is profoundly different than even what existed in the old world. And that is the thing that, unfortunately, probably at the period throughout the 20th century to right after independence is what we knew to be Caribbean civilization, which we kind of been losing the kind of impetus of it. But we still have it. And that is our gift to the world. That is why there are 300 Trinidad-style carnivals all over the planet.
And I believe that, and that's what I want to lead into. I want to lead into Dr. Kevin Adonis Brown. I first have to acknowledge that he's going to lead the lecture series for the Emancipation Festival this year. And because his area, quite fascinating to me, because I had to do a little reading on everybody here on rhetoric and poetics and vernacular philosophy and how does he see how does that resonate in blackness, and how does that give us a way to kind of forge a freedom road, as it were? Because I believe what Ruben is saying to some degree, that in spite of all of the rigors and the vicissitudes of the slave capitalist system, we have always found a way to be, and that is, I think, is powerful. I think that's why we're here, and one of the things we need to do is to move freedom from abstraction and see how we can start to manifest ways of implementing to move towards some new space. I don't know if it's too ambitious, but that's what I think, that one of the things I want us to leave here with is somebody doing slight forecast, some kind of visioning of what we all have been doing independently. How does that resonate to change paradigm and so? So I want to bring you in here, Kevin, I'll call you Kevin now. Please. For the work you have been doing, because he's a multidisciplinary practitioner, because it's not just in that area, he works in visual arts as well. But tell me how you have seen yourself contributing to the liberating spirit to which we all are moving towards.
All right. Good evening, everyone. How are you all doing? Good. All right? Cool. All right. There are many ways to, I suppose, start this conversation or to respond to the question that you've asked, Richard, but also what I've been hearing from the panel. But I feel it's important to perhaps go back to the audience, if that's okay, to really just sort of reiterate the issue of choice and consequence, which I think was really profound. All of the questions and statements from the audience were profound, and I think, or I hope, that in my response you can sort of like hear aspects of my responding to different comments, because I do not believe that we are free. Absolutely not. I know that of myself, that I'm not free. When I think and talk and write and make things that are intended to evoke or invoke aspects of freedom, the realization of my unfreedom becomes most apparent. And this is because freedom is not a state. Freedom is not a thing. Right? It's a trap. Right? Rhetorically, it's a trap. Which is to say, each of us has a conception of freedom. Right? And because each of us is different, each of us is going to have a different conception of freedom. So how do we acquire that freedom in a way that does not encroach on other people's freedoms? Right? And you spend your time jumping from one foot to the next trying to figure out, okay, does my freedom encroach on Abiel's freedom? And how is my and Abiel's freedom going to encroach on Giselle's freedom without Giselle feeling, well, you know what, why are you encroaching on my freedom? So I had to see if I could bring in Zakia, right? And see if I could bring in Rubadiri to see if they could stand up and respond. And it's too much excitement. And to me, right, it takes us into a place of a potential absurdity, you see? Because we spend our time being distracted in trying to figure out an individual definition of this concept that by its very nature is undefinable. By its very nature is something that is not achievable. Freedom is a consequence of actions. So I appreciate your bringing that up. Freedom is a consequence. Freedom is an end to things. Right? When you're dead, you're free. You see? So when you're like when Wendell said, listen, I was in Juve, and I'm sure each of us has felt a version of that. If not in Juve, you must have felt a version of it, where you feel so close to death. And you kind of know that you're close to it, and you're saying to yourself, ah, boy, something like it going to happen. And I don't know what it is, and my paws raising, I feel my voice trembling, I feel my body unsafe. And you feel that in the push of a crowd. I fear crowds because I do not want to get trampled to death. I fear crowds because I do not trust the police. I fear crowds because the ease with which I give up my fear is sometimes too much to bear. When I'm in a crowd, like you see when I used to play with Chicanal, back when they had a Juve band.
Best Juve band.
And
past tense.
You see, that's what I had to say he had, right? The idea is that, and I mean that brings us to a question of time and timing and different things, but that's another conversation. When you feel that, right, it's not that you feel free, right, but you feel the possibility of freedom. Carnival, no matter what you do, you want to dress in bikini and feathers, you want to dress in rhinestones, you want to dress in paint, you want to dress in mud, you don't want to dress at all, you want to rip up and lie down in canal, all of which I've done at different times. Especially most proudly the canal, because we're in the canal, right? You say, I'm being hypertextual, I'm being intersectional, I'm doing the tri-canal thing, I lie down in canal 3 times, right? And that is a beauty, right? But it is not freedom. I don't expect to be free by the time Carnival done. I don't expect to be free the other remaining days of the year, right? What I expect to do every year is to be reminded of the possibility of freedom, the desire for freedom, and the reason why I should be trying to acquire or at least articulate freedom. My body can't be free in this place. Do you feel free? Right? You might feel freedom, an inkling of it. It might come to you in a dream. Right? You might be singing a hymn and something move you. You might get a chant and you forget that you're standing up and you're dancing, or you start to stand up and dance and then you realize, oh gosh, what's happening? You don't know which God to call on. All of them coming for you, all of them talking to you, every single jump. Freedom, that is not within my purview. My purview is articulating how the desire for freedom becomes something that we could participate in collectively. Because while freedom becomes this individualist kind of project, the desire for freedom is something that we share. What that freedom is beside the point. The desire is something that we share, so it means that we have the capacity to collaborate, the capacity to converse. A conversation is what I need. So much of the work that I do, and I was talking about this to a friend of mine who I just discovered was a friend, right? So much of the work that I do is in isolation. So much of it is alone. And the irony is that I'm talking about and writing about and making things that are about connection and community. But I'm doing this articulation in silence. I'm doing this articulation where, like I say, I'm speaking to you now, and every time I speak publicly, I just feel like my voice starting to shake and I want to cry. Right? And those of you who have seen me perform, like read, right? You've seen me read things and you've seen me break while reading them. Right? You've seen me try to read and not be able to finish a sentence. Not because I am so steeped in the horrors of blackness and the history of blackness, right? But because I know how unfree I am and the stakes involved. The stakes involved in what we do here. No set of history, no set of story, no set of religion, no set of spirituality, no set of words can adequately capture. And that, I think, is useful to remember. Mm-hmm. Because the uncapturable is what I align myself with. Even with a photograph, when we're talking about capturing this image and capturing that image, I resist it to deliberately move away from the very conception of capture. I spend a lot of time trying to use language as precisely as I can, and I fail almost every time. When I think that I'm not doing language well enough, like spoken language, I move to material. I dance, I sing. All of them poorly. You understand? My wine and bone stiff from, like, I'll tell you, 2001 or 2 I came home and I play a wicked job, boy, in Sandwich, a wicked job. Wine and bone break since then. So even when I play jab, right, 2015 I in the road, I get on bad as a king jab. I can't bend down. Because to bend down, even for manners, a bend down is because I crawling to get back up. And people thinking, boy, he real committed to performance. Paid in the tail. You understand? But that too is why I am always just sort of like shifting. And I'm shifting because I'm responding to the inescapability, right, that I see. Right? I love the idea of a flair for freedom. I love the idea for it, right? Because I love how you use language to pun the notion of sending up a flare so the conception of freedom could see me. But I know that this is philosophical, right? I know that it's philosophical, but it's no less philosophical than thinking about how the Duen operates, right? I read the Duen as a philosophical figure. I read Elijah Bless as a philosophical figure. Elijah Bless is not a temptress that is just lazy, you see. Elijah Bless is the embodiment and the simultaneous disembodiment of women's freedoms, something that cannot be contained effectively. Right? So when I read Elijah Bless, I read in Elijah Bless trying to read for permission. Right? So when I talk and I say anything like, yeah, but I operating on a height, you know, boy. You understand? When I operating on a height, I'm doing that in response to the heights I recognize in my own culture, in my own language. Right? So I wouldn't talk very long because I almost felt like I had to give a vote of thanks after hearing Rubadiri give his tiny lecture. His tiny lecture, right? Right? He drop a little lecture. I was like, wait, I don't even know what I'm going to say after, right? But you know, the conversation, I feel, I want to say thank you for inviting me to it, right? Because these are people who I admire in different ways. We only just come backstage to find out that me and Abel grew up opposite streets, right? The house behind mine, or my house behind hers, right? So the smallness of the world becomes this thing to say, hey boy, small world, but it becomes also a kind of tragedy. Because you can be so close to people who you admire for so long, you all are sitting next to each other, and some of you may not even know what the other person is thinking, what they're capable of, the kind of freedoms that they're able to help you to conceive, to perceive, and to enact. Right? I feel like it becomes this opportunity for possibility. Right? The impossibility of the unreachable and the uncapturable and the unfreedom becomes a space where we can do things where empire cannot reach us, where the police cannot beat us and shoot us to death. But it also means it's a place where we have to activate our imaginations in a very deliberate and deliberative way. Right? So I know I don't sound like everybody else. I know I don't say the same things in the same way or a similar way. But this, I think, is part of what is our responsibility, to do new things in new ways, to do all things in new ways. Because to do it in the same way that it has always been done is really to consign ourselves to the sort of immobility, stagnation, and really death that we've been feeling, right? Calling it life, calling it the everyday, right? So to shift and to shake to undermine sometimes the things that we think we know about ourselves, becomes a space where possibility begins to emerge, not even in a way that we really are ready for, right? And to be not ready is to be actually okay, and you have to be okay with not being ready, right? You have to be okay with not knowing what the script is. You have to be ready, and you have to be willing to not know what is going to happen, right? Because the not knowing what is going to happen is where possibility exists, again, in a space where you cannot be apprehended. Right, so I hope I wasn't going on too long, but I think I'm going to cut it there.
Thank you, Kevin. So I am very fascinated by that prospect, because I would not have worded it that way in my head, but that is what I feel. So I think you're speaking to a sentiment that I think we all share. The possibility of it seems it's unattainable, but the quest for it has to go on, you know, and so that is what gives us the compunction to continue and to stay resilient. I want to speak to my fellow from BCRC here, because I want us to make an alignment with the decolonizing, which is part of our mandate, and the removal of the practices that we know we have to confront. And I think Kevin speaks to that and kind of advises us on how we have to proceed, is what I'm seeing this as, because it's just a possibility of going after the mindset shift. And we have to go after it, but it probably might not even be as attainable. Because how are we shifting persons from putting on their pretty masks and their costumes and their things without, because when I was first introduced to BCRC, they brought up all the data. I was on the floor, flat on the ground. I say, there's no way to discuss this with anybody in the landscape of Carnival for them to shift, telling them that a pink bead has this more toxicity than a blue one, and a feather. It was down to that kind of, they have been researching it for years, and how toxic Carnival is, because it is not promoting upcycling, it's not promoting regenerating anything. It is just as you make and throw away, and it's not even promoting the artisanal practice from which it was birthed. It is just you pick up your box that was flown in. And so incrementally we have to go after this process of making the shift. I want to do, in fact, this is part of the process. I did this thing to align it for us to have not us, not you just talking as a scientist, and not me just coming in as a person in fashion who might know people and bring them. But I brought these voices together to shape how we're going to do this thing. Because that's what you all have been doing here so far. Giving a new imagining as to how it is. And that's, I like that particularly, Kevin, because that is what we have to do. Because that is the unshackling. The unshackling of the colonial relics that still exist is what you have to shake off and find a new way. Otherwise we're practicing old practices, and that is what is colonial. You know, we just, that's what it is. And our language is also all embedded and suffocating in that language of colonial thought. So it is going to be a challenge. So I'm throwing this because I want to push that agenda, and I want you all to speak to it. I want you all to comment on that, because that is definitely going to give me some kind of freeness of my mind in where I can go with my imagination as to how I am to attempt moving this needle in the mindset of people in the carnival space and the fashion space. Because we know that colonialism was never only ideological, it was also material. It entered our minds, our aesthetics, our economies, our bodies, our lands, and even the substances we normalize in the celebration and the production. I wrote that in my piece when I was submitting my application to do this job. So I was talking this talk. And so I want to hear from you how you see the dismantling. Because we have to do some kind of forecasting. We have to do some kind of visioning for this little congregation here to make sense of us going home, to have everybody thought, provoked. And I want it coming from your individual biographies more than you speaking to some universal understanding. I want, this is what happened to me, and this is how I know this can happen. This is how I changed in my own evolution. This is how I overcame something that I think I was suffocating from. You know, so I want to see if that can help us all, because somebody, you're going to be talking to somebody here. All right? So starting by Wendell and going across.
Well, I mean, starting with self, recognizing one's ignorance, recognizing that in spite of being bright and going to St. Mary's College, you didn't know one ass about yourself at the end of the day. And owning it and seeking to remedy that. The Mass helped me tremendously. Theatre, working with Walcott, helped me tremendously. Working with Minshall. And then, you know, to be able to claim one's own voice and articulate things from one's perspective was a tremendous, and still is. I don't take that for granted at all. I do not take it for granted at all. And to have people come back to you and say, you see, when you said this, or when you did that, or when you provided this opportunity, it made a difference to me. But for me, it's definitely, we all need to come to terms with our self-contempt, which was a term I first heard articulated working with Minshall, and understand how insidious that is, and how it acts on us constantly. So every choice you make, you have to hold up to some kind of questioning at some point, until you come to trust that there's an intelligence at place there, there's my imagination. I've come to trust my imagination. That's why I like what you're saying, Kevin, about, I don't put no stock in it is this or is that. No, it's not. One of my favorite poems is the 6 men of Hindustan to learning much inclined, who went to see the elephant, though all of them were blind. And everybody touched a different part of the animal and decided that the animal was that. For me, that describes Trinidad and Tobago to a T. Right? I used to be part of a group called Fixing TNT, and after a while I said to the man in charge, I said, which TNT you're trying to fix? Because it ain't have one TNT. And I only appreciated that by being a student of our history, by after school deciding to educate myself, because remember Bob Marley said, if I went to school I would be a fool. And most of us are damn fools.
Sparrow said it too.
Goddamn fools, idiots. And we will stand up in defense of arseness over sense.
Everything.
You know, when people say to me, oh, are we capable of producing costumes on the ground here? I said, but what are you talking about? That's how I know it. That's how it was. How we used to do it. Every corner had a seamstress.
Correct.
It was enterprise on the ground. It wasn't somebody in some factory somewhere controlling the thing.
That's right.
And I realized the day that I recognized the whole thing changed, the whole society changed, everything changed, when an entity was presenting 7 bands. Bands used to come out of communities, bands used to come out of families, bands used to come out of, you know, social grouping.
Yeah, absolutely.
But one entity owns 7 brands that they call in bands. And then one day I get one of their packages, because for some reason they used to give me a costume. Lord knows they never see me in the band, you know. But they used to send, they stopped now. They get the message. But one day I opened the package and realized, well, wait, it's not mass they're selling, it's product they're moving.
Correct.
Millions and millions of dollars in liquor and roses and Lord knows what else.
Yep. Yep.
That's what they're about. That's what this thing has become. And we're good with that. And the whole way that the carnival is qualified and quantified now is on spend and visitor arrival and all that kind of stupidness that means nothing to me as a man involved in the thing for 40 odd years or more. These things mean nothing to me. I different bad, and I reserve the right to be an ass in that regard, because I discover deeper power. And I know that there are other people out there who know that power.
Correct.
But it really aches my heart when I look at what Nariapru and that the black Indians, what they've become over time. And if we don't take time to recognize, listen, it has certain things that are precious, that define us. I take no comfort in we having 300 Trinidad-style carnivals all over the world. That means nothing to me. And you know, the only thing I take comfort in is none of it was started by officialdom. All of them start with a few drunk trainees saying, fuck that, I had enough, I go in and jump up in the street. And here we are today, all these years later, you have the biggest street festivals in the world. But what that means to us?
Nothing.
Except that something in we affords that. What is that something in we that affords that?
That's what we need to
That's what I'm interested in.
Correct.
That's the part that I think is worth investigating. The form will change, so I don't beat up over the form. I say, everybody want to put on bikini and toxic beads?
Go ahead.
I give up that fight long time. Right? Let it be. But the thing, the spirit, the imagination, that is the part we need to guard. That's the part that we need to treat as the precious resource. We still having arguments about, I see there's a current argument about Mento versus Calypso. It's all one. Santana said, asked Santana one time, what kind of music you make? He said, I make African music.
Thank you.
Once it have a beat, is African music. Once it's syncopating, is African music. What we arguing about, whether it's Mento or Calypso or this one or that one, is African music. And why with all of it in the minor? Because he was wailing. He was finding the joy and the pain. And I always tell people, carnival is not a time to have fun. Fun is, there's joy though. There's joy. It's a much richer thing. And no time for fun. Well, you have all your fun. I'm all curmudgeon now. I reserve the right to be all curmudgeon.
We still have
Agrio.
Thanks for the designation. So I don't know if that helps in any way.
Thank you.
But for me, as I say, it starts with self and recognizing what a dumbass I am. And I need to fill that void. I need to understand who I am, where I am, what time it is, and what's going on around me, and how we come to be here. Up till last night, I'm reading Bridget Burton's History of Race Relations in Trinidad and Tobago, 1870 to 1900. And she chose that period because it was a generation after emancipation. So for her, it was a period where you could gauge where things was going. The last chapter is called The Divided Society. Everybody need to read that. And we will understand what's going on right now. History will not absolve us of our ignorance.
That's correct.
And Walcott said, ignorance of your own ignorance is no excuse.
No excuse. Absolutely.
So, admit your ignorance and seek to fill the void. In the best way. And starting with right here, with self, with the basic things, the things that we have rejected, the things that we say have no value, the things that we can't commodify and commercialize and put a dollar on. That is where we have to start.
Thank you, and Zakia.
I want to start by addressing this newness. And I want us to think about our progress as a back to the future kind of thing. Because every time we talk, we can reference times and spaces that have passed. That's the reason why we know that these are things to which we should aspire, because they have existed. And therefore, everything is cyclical. And therefore, our journey is not this way. It's always going this way. It's always going like that. So the change to which we are aspiring has already existed, you know, and it's how we make our journey back to that space and that time, you know. So I just wanted to, as we were talking about change and transforming, I want us to know that it has existed before. That's how we know that we need to aspire towards it, because it is something that in our energies and our existences, yeah, because if we believe that we are spiritual beings that have human experiences from time to time, it means that this energy that embodies us has existed many times before, and therefore has experienced this thing that we're yearning for, because we know that it is something that exists. So that's my take on the cyclical, the personal experience. Like Wendell, I went to what we call Prestige School in Trinidad and Tobago. The little black girl in the convent, who when you take a picture, you could make me out easy.
One time.
One time. A little black dot, somebody can make out the features. But, you know, there was, again, this yearning, and this is why, if once we are able to contact with self, knowing that there was something else, the Black Power Revolution was really, and I don't come from a home with no revolutionary people. Yeah, my mother is a straight case European, follow people's rules, have manners and respect, and be a good girl. Right? Get a job, make some money, so you can function. She never understood my passion for not liking money. Are you crazy? I used to say, Mama, all I want is to have enough to supply my needs. And she would be totally abhorred when I said things like that. But that was just my natural way. I'm still like that, basically. The material things are not a priority for me. But I'm saying, in that space, there was something inside of my being. My father was a mass man. He made mass. So we were exposed to that. Right? All my siblings are born-again Christians. I'm the only person in my family who felt this need to find something different. You know what I'm saying? So the Black Power Revolution, I was like that with it. I mean, I was 15 years at the time, but I would read every single thing that happened, and it really attracted me. The boldness of people to stop combing their hair and to have dreadlocks was an amazing attraction to me, while others in society looked down upon them and said, oh God, you know. I was just fascinated that you are so brave and bold and free to decide that I would no longer comb my hair. And when I decided to grow my locks, while as a teacher, I want to say that myself and Myrood Ali are the first two teachers in Trinidad and Tobago to go to school with dreadlocks. Yes. And what would happen, like it was the August vacation, and we just decided, because we were just into, you know, Rastafari and trying to understand this thing that was happening in our space, and what did it mean to us, and so on. And we just decided, okay, we're going to grow locks and all of that. And then while we're still learning, and so I left school with my afro, and I went back to school with my long skirt and my head tie. This is after the September 2, you know. So, and the school was run by a nun. But that was good. She was an African nun. Okay. And I changed my name in that period too. In school? Yes. So before the term ended, I was Mrs. King, Wendy King, and then when I came back, I was Zakia Naina Zuma.
That's your original name? I never knew your name was Wendy King.
Yes, it was. It started in Wendy Manners, and then I got married and became Wendy King, and then I changed my name during this August vacation. I went through this transformation. So when I went back to school, I went to Sister and I said, Sister, over the vacation, I changed my name legally by default. So this is my new name, and now I have to come with my head covered because now I'm going locks and all of that. And she had the most amazing response. She said, my dear, if that is what gives you comfort that you would like, she never objected. That is the amazing nun. And so then I became this, the poor children, everybody have to transform to miss. But the point I'm making is that when there is these, of course, people in my community thought that I had trip off. You understand? Because this is the convent girl who now wearing leather slippers, long skirt, you understand, and covering her head, you know, because she growing locks. So, but to me, that is part of us making that decision, feeling a sense of empowerment, even as a young person, to do things that no one else, you know, the people closest to you, your friends and everything, what I'm there. Why is she doing that? You know, and to me, these things are born and sort of deep within yourself. It is something, as Abby will say, when you allow yourself to be free to live your purpose, then these things happen. And you are not cowed by my mother being very upset. She would say things like, if my mother used to tell me, if Jesus wanted you to grow locks, he would have to invent comb. My mother said that. And I said, Mommy, Jesus did not invent comb. You understand? That did not happen, okay? He did not invent the comb. Imagine him 40 days and 40 nights in the desert. I don't think he was combing his hair and what is that hair, brushing it or whatever he was doing, like how you see him in pictures. He wasn't doing that. He had no comb. So, but you understand the difference in the colonial mentality. My mama was convinced that not combing your hair was a horrible thing to do. You understand? And then she went back to the Bible to see if she could have convinced me that it was Jesus invented comb, so you should comb your hair. Right? So, but my mind was able to tell her, Mommy, no, that's not true. Okay? And then of course I changed my name. How does appear and feel when you decide you're not keeping the names? So it's all of that you have to deal with. You have to tell your friends who knew you from that I have a new name and all of that. And I think that is the trajectory and the sort of building consciousness and self-awareness and wanting to be yourself. You know, I was always interested in spirituality, and I practiced a whole lot of different Raja Yoga, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Buddhist chant. I did anything that was spiritual. And in one of my experiences, something said to me, it's time to go home now. Yeah? So I walked there, whatever, it is time to go home. And that is how I embraced the Orisha tradition, because that is traditional African spirituality. You know, and in that, I have found, and I want to say the word, a particular kind of freedom to be. Because it has brought a kind of understanding of myself and my relationship with the energies that are responsible for my being and all of our beings. And that kind of understanding has brought to me a certain kind of freedom. It's not all that it is, and there's always still more to yearn for, but it gives me the power to believe, you know, that I can be who I should be, or who I was destined to be, and who I want to be. You know, I can be who I am.
That's something you have to claim, right?
Yes.
Nobody's going to grant it onto you.
Exactly. So we have to claim that. You know, so I'm saying that to become is a journey, and a journey of a lot of courage, a journey of really ignoring a lot of negative and staying in the positive. And as I was telling Wendell, in the midst of all of this negativity in which we find ourselves, we have a responsibility to be positive. Because life is about balance too. And if we do not, if all of us get overwhelmed and pulled into that negative space, that's when it all will collapse. Some of us have to remain positive. Some of us have to see that light. Some of us have to know that it is not, that all is not, that it is not finished. You know? And my motto in life is that all is well. Even in the midst of pain, in the midst of trauma, in the midst of all challenges, and I have experienced many of those, my mantra remains, all is well. You know, so I just want us to understand that we have the power. We have the power. Yes, we do. And that's what I want all, people always ask me what messages I want to give to our people, is that we have the power. The power exists within. Let's go, let's find it, let's be bold and let's be brave, and let's create through our minds and our understandings the world that we want to live in. Ashe.
Giselle?
I feel it in my bones. all my bones. I really hear that. I hear the need for us to be positive, delight. It really means a lot. And I'm thinking even about Carnival and about the kind of memories that I have as a child and what I have as a child. And I remember, I mean, it's unrecognizable. There's no way to compare it to what it is now. And I was telling a friend this the other day, my very first memory of Carnival, I don't know how old I was, but I was small, because I was on top of the shoulders of one of my uncles. I was on the corner of French and Arapita, and I remember Minchel was coming down with Santi Manite and the big masks and stuff on standards, and I remember I was eye level with these things. And as a child, I had this visceral experience of reverence. Is the only word to describe it, that Carnival could do that, could exist that way. And I come from a family that also played plenty mass, make their own costumes, all those things, so there was an element of freedom in that. But to tie it back to some of the stuff that Richard has brought up about Carnival and what has been voiced about freedom and our responsibility and turning points in our lives, in our personal lives. I know for myself as a designer, how I started out, some of the things that changed my entire way of approaching the practice of it, and to some extent gave me a sense of that freedom, right? There are two things that I want to say, and it's definitions of design that were given to me along the way. I can't even remember. I was in school at some point and somebody told me these things. And I remember one person said to me, design and designers are really about collapsing time. And it's such a word because you could be a graphic designer, an industrial designer, you're designing objects, you're designing a world basically for somebody else to inhabit that they haven't seen yet. You're creating something out of nothing and you're inviting somebody into that space. That is a tremendous responsibility and power. And then the other definition of design that, again, in its own way set me free from the constraints of it was when you open your eyes in the morning and you look around the world and you walk down the street and you're living your life, design is actually everything that your eye touches that isn't nature. And when you think of that and you think of the role of a designer, that is tremendous power. That is wild power. And the most frightening thing about design is that we have been brainwashed by these colonial systems. We have been divorced from nature. We have been divorced from our humanity on so many levels that things like a child seeing Minchel's masks floating on top of masqueraders is some kind of alien treasure now, right? Because I tell that to a youth today, they never see that in their whole life, right? They don't even know what that means.
That's a standard is.
That's right, they didn't know what standard is. They don't even know what standard is. And the fact that people made it. Right here.
Everything.
Every
part of it.
Every part of it. Mommy told me stories about my grandfather playing Roman soldiers. But they're making up the whole life.
With copper.
Yeah.
Real copper.
And velvet cape.
And velvet.
And velvet cape.
Real copper.
You know, so it's not from out of nowhere this thing came. This thing came from a real
Back to the future. True, go back.
Force inside of us. We can't forget that. We don't dare forget that. Right? So I think it is really up to all of us in this space that we call home, that we call Trinidad and Tobago. We have to just be that light. We have to embody that. We have to take that with us wherever we go so that people at least see it and at least know it exists. Because I think if not, we really run this risk of as Wendell said, just pure ignorance. Pure ignorance of ourselves. Nothing else exists but this din, this cacophony.
And a bombast.
And a bombast. Just nudity, just, well, whatever it is, because reality is there's a place for nudity in Carnival too. But I just think that we have truly lost certain elements that are just gone now. But when we think about that relationship with our humanity and with our earth, our beautiful ecosystems, my God, when you think about Trinidad and all of the different confluence of ecosystems we have here, they kind of don't belong together. It's a very strange thing because we broke off of the continent. We have little pieces of this and pieces of that, all kind of mismatched ecosystems that don't exist elsewhere in the world. It's very special. We cannot take our environment for granted. We cannot. And I firmly believe that we can be that voice for the world. We can teach the world how to do that.
And we knew how to do it.
And we knew how to do it.
We used to live in harmony with nature.
That's right.
We understood it was interdependent.
That's right.
So that's it. Every time we have to go back.
We have to come back to it.
Sorry about that, Richard.
That's okay, there's no parting here.
No, it's because it's true, yeah.
Because we knew that. We knew all those things already.
Even.
When I was in, I think I was in Form 2, Presentation College in San Fernando. And I was a black boy being a black boy, right? I grew up on Carib Street, right? Which, if you know San Fernando, is like the street that Presentation College is on. So Presentation College is at the bottom of Carib Street on the corner of the coffee there. And I'm higher up, just before the Carib House. Right? Ostensibly what people would call a ghetto, right? Because it's a poorer area. Large houses, but some of them run down. I grew up in one of the rundown houses, or near to one, or outside of one. But anyway, I went boys RC, so that was my thing, right? So I'm in school, being a black boy in this school, and I don't remember what I was doing, but the dean of discipline was making our rounds, and he see me, right? Everybody scatter, going back in the seat and thing. He say, "Brown, come." Right? What are you doing? I didn't have an answer, right? In Form 2, what do I know? And he took his strap, right? He took his strap, and he put it around my neck, right? He put it around my neck, and he held it just tight enough, right, where you could feel it constricting on your neck. So his hand was there. And he grabbed it, and he said, "You want to act like an animal? I will treat you like an animal." And he led me by the neck down the hall to his office. I say this not to revive, right? And you realize what? Was it holy name?
Yeah.
No.
Controversy.
No. We didn't have sisters. We had brothers, right? And those brothers had their own thing, which is another conversation to have. But this particular atrocity, I'm not saying it to put my school on blast, right? To shame the dean, to kind of like garner any sympathy for myself, right? I say it because the Colonial project is it borders on the sublime, you have to understand, right? Which is to say that your experience of it is not just about punishing you to behave yourself. It's not just about experiencing pain so you could know how not to be. Right? It's about the awareness that your humanity, before you even have a language for expressing and understanding, articulating that humanity, is systematically diminished. that you exist in a state of diminishment. You exist in a state of erosion of your soul that you don't even know you have yet, erosion of your spirit that you don't know how to identify or tap into, erosion of your body because you learn not to walk with your head held high, not to walk with your shoulders square, not to walk. You understand? You don't just get taught that, you learn to teach yourself that. Right? Now, I got led, right, black boy being a black boy, down the hall, right, and the depth of shame was something that I had not, at that moment, been able to plumb. So it means in the ocean, in deep water, you don't know how deep the water is because you don't even know why it's happening. You don't know what's going on with you. You understand? I say that because while I was revising this last book that I wrote, I rediscovered that memory because I was writing about education and my resistance to, my response to education, my problems and critiques of education, the issue of colonial education and post-imperial, and really let's call it what it is, Caribbean education. Because not everything that is Caribbean emerged in the post-colonial moment or the post-imperial moment. Some of it emerged because we have allowed ourselves to think in particular ways that have allowed atrocities to persist. Right? There's a kind of complicity happening, right? But I had to write about that in order to write myself out of it. Right? Writing is not therapeutic, it's liberating. It doesn't liberate you into a state of freedom, it liberates you into a state of awareness. Creating things, making things are liberatory in that sense because they provide you with a deeper understanding, a better understanding, a clearer understanding of who you are, who you want to be, who you're not. Unbinding is the work. Unbinding is the work.
Yes, indeed.
Right? When we think about freeing ourselves, what we typically mean is to not be bound. What we typically mean is not to be constricted by the neck. To free ourselves is to not be bound, to be unbound. What I would say to you is to figure out how to write yourselves out of where you are. How to write yourselves, how to make yourselves, craft yourselves, create yourselves out of what constrains you. I can't tell you what that is. I can only try my best to encourage you to do it. If you happen to be doing it, let me have a conversation where you could talk about what that looks like. Because conversation is how truth emerges. Conversation is how awareness emerges. Right? I don't know what I would have become if I had not had that strap around my neck. And I didn't know until, I'm going to say 34 years later, what I became because of it. Unbinding is the work. You may not feel good doing it. If you're doing it well, if you're doing it right, let's say, right, you're not going to feel good at all.
That's right.
You're going to feel terrible. You are going to feel horrified sometimes by what has happened to you and by what you have done. You are going to feel it. But you cannot be afraid of the terror that comes in the unfolding and the unbinding. And you have to be able to recognize that as part of what your experience is. You are going to die. You say this to yourselves. You are mortal. At least for now, in this particular state, you are mortal. You are going to die. Right? Unbinding is the work. Right? What are you going to make of yourselves? What are you going to make for yourselves? What are you going to make for others? I didn't know that I had to ask those questions. Right? The work demanded that I ask those questions as a result of the unbinding. And I'll just kind of like switch really quickly to part of the unbinding that I do is not just the writing, but in terms of the multiple materials that I use, right? So when I use like wood and metal and these kinds of things, and I'm working with them and my hands are dirty and my chest getting tight because like an idiot I don't wear masks, right? Because I'm like, yeah, this is gonna just take 2 minutes to do, right? And next thing you know is because I've been sanding for like 5 hours to kind of like make something happen, right? My engagement with the environment, as Giselle has said, right, is visceral, right? Wear all the beads you want, right? But know that the environment is central to your existence, whether it's artificial or real, or natural, right? So the awareness of your connection to the environment, your responsibility for, and really your weakness within the environment is key to what you end up making and what that making means, right? And if you make space for meaning to happen, right, sometimes out of nothing, but very often out of something, you will find that other people will see the space that you make and either engage with you or be inspired to do things anew. What is wrong with you? Who taught you to hate yourselves? I know who taught me to hate myself, and it took me decades to answer that question. But it's not all horror, is it? It can't be. Who taught you to love yourself? Sometimes it's the same people.
That's right.
So it means unbinding. You unbind because that is the work. And you let things fall apart a little bit because they have to fall apart a little bit. Right? They are coming apart and we are coming apart. But how in that coming apart are we to find the connections that exist between us? Not just on this panel where you see like minds or unlike minds or what have you, but each of us as we begin our dissipation of form from bodies into lesser bodies and then into the environment that holds us, that binds us, calls us to itself. How do we answer? How do we answer in the unbinding? So you write yourselves into that answer. You work yourselves. You paint yourselves. You mold yourselves. And answer. And then you proceed from there. I think that's something.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Abel.
Greetings once again. I have no idea what I'm about to say because it's so many things. I've been taking little notes about things that people have been saying that I would want to go home and percolate on. Things that absolutely resonate, and then other things where I go, but no, I'm too sure about it, I need a minute with that one. And that's fair, and I think that's what evenings like these are about. But I think what's really important is that, and I've been realizing this a lot over the last couple of weeks, everybody is saying the same thing in a lot of ways in all of these communal spaces that I've been in as of recently. Everybody is saying the same thing in different ways. And I think that's important because it means we are beginning to we are mobilizing. The problem with our revolutions is that we don't organize. We are exceptional at mobilizing, but we don't get organized. And to be organized is to be able to language what is happening, where he talks about writing yourself in or out of a story. How do you do that? What is the language that we are using? And sometimes we as academics, it's very masturbatory. We sit in little conclaves and we talk to each other and we use lots of nice big words and we talk about theory, but we don't actually speak to the people to whom we are supposed to be advocating for, out of which the communities that we come. And the word for me is always community, because community is what brings it back. There is no caped crusader, Captain Saberho, coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. And Auntie Zakia is absolutely right. African way is the cyclical way. The word revolution in its very meaning is to circle back. And we are in a revolutionary time, which means we have to return to community. He born on Carib Street, I born Funrose Street. My uncle is a foundation member of Fun Clare. The name Fun Clare comes from the street Funrose and Clare Street. Those two names come together. That is how the band Fun Clare was formed. My uncle Kenneth Kingston Sharkhead Arthur, he'd be very pissed if he knew I was telling people his nickname. Right? Is a foundation member of Fun Clare. That way I grew up. Right? When they was filming Pan by Storm, if you find the video, you'll see a little girl in a little denim skirt and a pink jersey with pink ribbons in her hair. That is me, jumping like her life depended on it. Right behind designer. That's me. I grew up in that. My other uncle used to play Black Indian. I had another uncle named Top Scamp. I come from that kind of family named Top Scamp, who terrified me with playing jab. I have been with Tricanal for all these years at Wendell. How I do not like dirty mass. My spirit don't agree with dirty mass. I will drag tree line in the road from now till I'm the biggest jammer. But if we are playing, if Tricanal is doing a show and it requires paint, I say, okay, put the paint here, put the paint here, put the paint here. And by the end of the show, of course, I'm completely covered and it has been a completely cathartic experience. But it don't resonate with my spirit because Top Scam traumatized me when I was a child. Yes, huh? The point is, community. The thing has always belonged to the community and we took it out to the community. They sanitized it because they had to find a way to control us. Our first system of violence that we encounter is the education system. It is the first system of violence. There was a point in time where every average...
Especially prestige schools.
Come on, talk to things.
Yeah.
He went press, I was next door at Naps. So he was a little black boy in Presentation College and I was a little black girl in Naparima Girls High School. You all know the demographic of Naparima Girls High School?
Yes.
Come on. It is the reason why they equate black girls who went to Naparima Girls High School with bishop girls in town. There's a reason. The point is that our system of education is the first way we stratify a society. It deals in stratification. Yeah. There's a reason why the prestige school system exists, and then there's a reason why the government schools that look like prisons exist. The Concordat was one of the things, the underpinnings under which our independence was negotiated. Williams and CLR bust up bad, because CLR was a Marxist, and he believed in socialism. And Williams understood that the only way we would get independence or the illusion of sovereignty was if we played into the hands and capitulated to capitalism. So here we are with the Concordat. And it's the reason why we have two education systems operating in the same space. One that is telling, and both of them operating in weaponized ignorance. It's just creating different forms of worker bees to operate inside of creating capital for other people. And as a result, when they realized the power of things like carnival, they introduced competition so that we could introduce the corporate world to sanitize it. And then we allowed them to take it out of the space. It's there, the framework for the thing to operate in the way Richard talks about, and this is the part that I don't necessarily believe. I don't necessarily believe that we have to think that freedom is an impossibility. Do I think it's an ongoing quest? Yes. But do I think that we have the tools to imagine our way into freedoms, into new freedoms, that will freedoms that will change over time? I do, because they have always existed in our communities. We had an ecosystem, the wire bender, the person who making cow mass, the person who making Peromas, etc., 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 etc. Those ecosystems existed, and they were ecosystems that allowed people to eat. And it is a beautiful microcosm of what can happen in our wider society. Except we've been told that we need to peddle carnival that is for outside consumption. We're suddenly obsessed with data and the numbers and how much is it bringing in, and what about the visibility and the tourism, etc. What is it doing for us? What is it doing for us as a people? What is it doing for our communities? Do you know how empowered the community around Funro Street and Clare Street was because of the fact that Clare came out of that space?
Absolutely.
Do you know what it did for the young men of that time? Panmen were supposed to be Bajans. Panmen are some of the most brilliant, the most innovative, the most creative people to ever walk this land. Alongside Calypsonians, alongside stick fighters, alongside.
Some of the most brilliant.
And we have allowed people to come into our spaces, take what is ours, as they have always done, and capitalize off of it and give nothing back to the space out of which it came. And we have to be able to begin to language that. Otherwise, we sit and we philosophize and we use the theory and all this kind of stuff, and we're not talking to the people in the spaces out of which the thing come. These spaces that are now over-policed, hyper-surveilled, where black bodies bloodied in a box drain is about a statistic on the newspapers. Because we're afraid to say the word socialism. We're afraid to talk about the fact that the reason why we vilify in Cuba is because Cuba had the right, the gumption to say that their resources belong to them and not outside imperialists. Meanwhile, we welcoming the IMF with open arms. Come on in. Those are real considerations. And there was a time in Trinidad and Tobago where people were reading widely. People used to meet in the University of Woodford Square and talk about scholarship. And then the Black Power happened, and Eric and them jump on the bandwagon, co-opt it and say, we can't let that happen. So we minimized it to being about, we can now wear Afro and work in banks, when that was never what it was originally supposed to have been, and it is why it is still an incomplete revolution. And why the education system radically changed after that. Government schools in Trinidad and Tobago right about now are not teaching history. Let us settle. They're not teaching history, they're doing something called social studies, which is, thank you.
Not even.
So you are literally taking away the ability for our children to accept their birthright, which is knowing their history about themselves. They don't know. Man Warren says, one of my mentors, I tell him he's not allowed to die because I will roll in the road. He does say, they don't know, we don't know, and we don't know that we don't know. Our children don't know. The Ifa Orisha community came out and asked for a holiday. The comments, now I always tell myself, don't read the comments about brain cells. But I just read the comments because I need to know what my people thinking. So I just read the comments, right? Apart from the bots and trolls and the sycophants which we expect.
And the WASA employees.
We have a slew of people who look like us, melanated folks, who don't know there's a difference between spiritual Baptists and Orisha people in Trinidad and Tobago. We have failed.
That's right.
Because if we don't know, because it's people we age and up talking on the socials and things, then how we expect, that means we're not passing on anything. You understand? We have abdicated our responsibility to be the stewards of our communities. We are not passing down our stories, we are not passing down our traditions, and it is the reason why corporate Trinidad and Tobago, who like to put up bunting and thing, will sail into our communities and take what is ours, capitalize off of it, and then ghettoize we when we do it. It's not hip. And when you dare to language what is happening in this space, you just lose work. I lose 2 work for the year already. 2! And I'm being surveilled every single day, and I'm aware of it. I have lost friends. People suddenly get very quiet. But that is the truth. That's the truth. I used to play in drag. Well, they're not calling names. I call it names. I used to play in drag. Because you're young and you're hip and you're fabulous and you're skinty and you want to wear the teensy weensiest of the teensy weensiest and you want to take pictures, and them days it wasn't selfie. You have your little camera. You remember the digital camera? Yes, the little digital camera. You turn it, take a picture of yourself, and then you turn it back to see if you take it good. I come up in that time. And then something say, this ain't feeling right, because of course I come out of a particular family and a particular tradition, and my family and my tradition, they ain't bend when they see me going to play with, oh, she going in town to play, man. Oh, okay, she sure, yeah. All right, and then we transition into big mass, because in my head I want to be Alison Brown. Yes. In my head I want to be Alison Brown. I want cloth. I want things. Ask what they'll them. When they see me in the yard, Carnival Monday morning and Carnival Tuesday, it is bacchanal. Here now, the backpack cannot fit in the trunk. First of all, I want all. I want all. However, you also come to the realization that despite the fact that you are playing what feels more like a manifestation, because mass is manifestation. You spoke about it, where you say, as a designer, is about creating another world for somebody else to inhabit. That is manifestation. Thy manifestation, thy we. Carnival didn't come from the French. That's right. There's a version of it that has the influence, because creolization is when plenty things come in a space and rub up against each other, and that's fair. But it is manifestation, and that comes from us, right? So that idea of manifesting inside of a big mass, etc., what I play in this year. So the section is this, but I play in this inside the section, fair. But then you realize that even though you're operating inside of a band that's doing that, the band is still affiliated. And I love the people. I love them because I understand that you have to give people grace. Not everybody is where you are in the moment. So I still love all of the people. I was one of the people on the table that conceptualized it. When Lost Tribe was a thought, I was one of the people around the table. I registered the most people the first year. I get a bottle of Prosecco. For registering 200 and something people in the band. The first year. Right? I still love them. I love them plenty. But we're in a different space. So about 2 years ago, I started playing a different kind of mass. I play a baby doll. But I'm not playing a regular baby doll. I play a warrior baby doll. I play a baby doll that have the energy that lives on my head. I am a child of Oya. So I play in warrior. I play in a baby doll that is carry a bois. Because I feel as though I should be able to reimagine even inside of the framework of our traditional characters. And I did not play to win. I come third, but I did not play to win. I did not play to get a prize. I played it because it spoke to my spirit. So this is where the convergence of the community and what we are doing in terms of our traditions and what is our birthright and how it serves our community, and creating ecosystems and understanding how those ecosystems can be an example for the wider society, and pushing back and transgressing against the systems that currently exist. And then there's also your individual responsibility that's happening inside of there, and your individual imagination, and how the bravery of your individual imagination can affect your community in a positive way. Not everybody go be as brave and as bold-faced as me. Plenty people are wrapped up in the business of survival, and that's okay. It's exhausting. Because that's what the system wants. It wants you exhausted. Too tired to challenge it. Too tired, because toddler baby formula is $250 a tin, and it lasts in a week and a half.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
You understand? Those are real things. But what the system will also do is punish you for the act of survival. What is crime and criminality? Who decides what is criminal? Is somebody stealing because they have children home to feed?
That's right.
Is that really criminal? When we exist in a system that has manufactured scarcity. Scarcity does not really exist, it is manufactured. There is enough for all of us. If you say what's up, what about that? I'm saying, apart from what's up. And you know what? Let's use the Wassa example. Let us use the Wassa example. Yes, cronyism. Yes, cronyism. Yes, the brokenness and the ugly and the stinkness of party polarities and us feeling that politics is party when politics is just the act of living and navigating everyday life. How you choose to love, how you choose to worship, how you choose to raise your children, that is politics. Red and yellow is not politics. Right? So, yes, the Wassa issue is wrapped up in the party politics, but them people who get them work figure out how to survive and fleece a system that was designed to damage them.
Yeah.
Now, how we could call it for what it is, but I can't fully vex with it. You understand? I could call it for what it is. I could see it for what it is. And when we, the aspirational middle class, because we don't actually exist, the middle class in Trinidad and Tobago is a figment of our imagination. We are all catching our ass.
Well, I was about to say, I call it the catch-ass class.
Class. We don't exist.
Struggling.
Okay, we have our cars and our bank loans and all that foolishness, but we are playing any, mini, miny, mo at the end of the month. We have people who have worked 33 and a third years, and when they retire, they have to choose between paying bills or filling the prescription so that they succumb to lifestyle diseases. That's the reality of the space in which we are living. But we live inside of a system that has told us we are different from the people who live in Beetham and Silots and Laventille and in Bacadé and parts of Pleasantville. And we've bought into it. And it is killing us. It is killing us.
It really is.
So, your responsibility now, and I know not everybody else is there, and I'm not vexed with the smallies and them who still want to play in the little teeny tiny costume, because I know it's going to take a moment. And we have not done the work of making sure they know why making a particular choice matters. We have not done that work. We have abdicated our responsibility. However,
well, I think there are exceptions to that.
There are exceptions.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
You know, Frantz Fanon says every generation
has a responsibility.
have to fight their battle.
The mission. Figure out
and
your
they
mission.
must not point the finger at the one that came before and say they didn't do it because they did it with the tools that they had at their disposal.
Fair.
Everybody had a work to do. And if you look at this group in here, everybody here has been trying their best.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying no, that there aren't those who have been trying their best. But there are plenty of us, particularly in the catch-ass class, who have been playing respectability politics, who feel as though kowtow into the system.
Agreed.
And abdicating.
Because they know it have a price to pay.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. So in that regard, we have abdicated to our young people. And the legacy that we pass into them is respectability and obedience instead of challenge and tapping into their imagination. And to me, that is the responsibility that we have in this particular time. Understanding choice, consequence, how it operates, how ecosystems in terms of our communities operate, and what we are doing individually for ourselves that in turn affects the strength, the health, the emotional, spiritual, physical well-being of our communities. And I will leave it there.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That's it.
Yeah, man.
Vote of thanks.
Sorry.
Good night.
Yeah.
I took
Could I reverse?
St. Mary's College to complete the five-factor. Prestige. You could kind of understand something here by that.
Collective
but also because we are up here. That that's also something that we
It's so true.
are up here. And not
It's very true.
and not the Digo sect, Mukurapo Junior sect, Karatal, right? So there's
You
that.
have more important things to do.
My father was a sociologist. He helped set up the sociology department at UWI, and my mother was a home ec teacher. So my father was head, and my mother was heart. Right? My father was an intellectual. When he was a sociologist in the States and a counselor and stuff, he counseled like J. Paul Getty and the Rockefellers, their kids, in a 200-acre estate where they were being rehabbed. And then he also would counsel in the inner cities. It was in the 60s. He was in the States at the time of civil rights, Jim Crow, the dreadness and stuff. Came back and tried to give back, and he helped set up the sociology department. My mother became a teacher at age, I think, 13, because at that age, those are the choices that you had in Toko, right? She was the brightest kid in the thing, and they said, right, and she immediately became a teacher one time. Right? I don't think she eventually, I think, went to teachers training college, and she was much like old, like 60s, and that kind of stuff. So she was always being paid like a teacher one, like was the lowest rung, because she but that she was like that. So I grew up in that space, but these are two people, these are patriots. So I grew up, and they're incredible storytellers, so I grew up at their feet and that kind of stuff. My dad was one of the intellectuals that somehow survived the purges of Williams. Because Williams, all the other intellectuals, he destroyed all those around him, and then he had to be the only brain in the room. But my dad was one of the couple that, he kept around for whatever, And, but my dad was always a kind of rebel, so my dad was trying to create things like anti-monopoly legislation, because he said that Neil Massey and McInerney Alstons and an ex-slave society, those are two dangerous organizations, and they needed to be taken apart. And that some dangerous things will happen to the society if you allow these kinds of companies with interlocking directorates and all those kinds of things to continue. And Williams would fight him on that, because these are the party financiers.
Right.
Right? So he was always...
Exactly.
And here we are. I was going to say it. Here we are.
Cyclical.
So my dad was always battling in those things. He was a senior public servant at NIPDEC. The boys and thing will tell him, you have to thing, and he was like, no. It's like, no. It's like, I'm an outside woman, she have to get the manager. Things like, no, these people have seniority, no. And then was like, what's wrong with this man, boy? Like, this man I understand his role and responsibility, in this place. So, fighting all these battles, my mom's fighting the battles on the ground and those kind of things. Later on, she would help set up extramural. She's the one who, in terms of indigenous cooking and stuff in home ec and those kind of things, getting people to, how to make a roti, how to make pilau, how to make those kinds of things. That's her thing. The NAPS girls from the NAP cookbook, those are students. Those are people who were in her class.
Yeah, my mother put cake recipe in that book.
So these are real patriots and stuff. So my dad, after it reached a point where, I remember when the first photocopiers came, he carried us, the whole family, to NIPDEC. He was manager at NIPDEC, and where they were trying to get him to do all these things, and he was using the photocopy to photocopy documents for to track the corruption just in case. So the whole family, we were just there as kids, there and that kind of stuff, and he's there and that kind of thing, Anyway, he helps form the ONR because he's battling, he couldn't get change from inside, right? He was battling and nothing was giving. So he forms the ONR. My family has death threats, right, because of that. As he's going up, he goes up for elections in Toko Manzanilla, because both of my parents are from rural poor, right, from Toko and from Sandy Grande. So our family goes into hiding during that election. This is part of the country that people don't know that this is Trinidad and Tobago. So my family goes into hiding. We are hiding from house to house during that period whilst the election is going on, right? We lose. When our loses, people lose their deposits, all those kinds of things. My father, of course, loses his job, and the bank pulls the loans, everything, like complete. If you spoke to my father, you could lose your job. So he immediately knows who his friends are. It's come down to about on one hand. He could count them on one hand, right? Complete alienation, right? This is how, I mean, I could call names, the other call names. You call this is how the PNM functions, right? The PNM has a long memory, and this is how the PNM, right? So he's he's home. This is a man, this is a person who's a sociologist and a thing, setting up departments, setting up things, whatever, like, he used to, and now he's home. He can't even talk to people. It's just us there at home. My mom, we are kids, we don't know what's going on, but my mom is working 7 jobs to keep the house, to pay the mortgage and those kinds of things. Now we don't know that. We just know that mom is leaving the house at 6 o'clock in the morning and coming back at 9. Right? And daddy's home getting vexer and vexer. Right? Eventually starts to take it out on us. But probably mostly me. But I am also inviting it to me because I don't want it to go to my sister and my mom. So I know that I have a responsibility to take the licks. I have to take it. Now, this is a brainy house, right? It's 5 libraries. I'm reading Freud and Jung at 11 years old, right? I'm reading, like classics and all those kinds of things. So I'm trying to understand what is going on. Like, why is all these things happening and those kinds of things that, I still have these dreams around like age 8. Yeah, no. I am an artist. I am an artist. I have a dream. No, I'm saying this because I'm sure a lot of you also have dreams.
Correct. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so you need to understand.
Sometimes you don't remember them.
So I start having these dreams that, you're having a normal dream, then all of a sudden something is chasing you in the dream. I think some of us might have those dreams. Something chasing you, and then you're running, then all of a sudden you're running slow, and the thing moving at normal, Usain Bolt kind of thing, and you're like, what the hell is going on? And of course the terror is complete as a child. You can't, children don't have the pretense and that kind of stuff. The terror is, I have this dream every single night from about age 8. So sleep becomes terror. I try all kinds of things in my own little child way, prayers, this, that thing, you have a little charms, whatever. But every night, like clockwork, it will come. This happens right up to Form 2 in Saints, right? I'm always the youngest in the form, right? So I was probably 11, probably still, I can't remember. But I'm in Form 2, I'm in the class. You're not supposed to be in class during break time. But I am sitting down in the class at break time, and there are 2 boys in front of me. I could see, my memory of this, and even at the moment, I could see the grain of the wood. I could see the color, everything. Except these 2 boys' faces. Like, when I remember it, I don't know if at the moment or when I remember it, but it's like their faces are blurs. They're sitting down in front of me and they're not talking to me. This is real. This is not This is not a dream. This is real life. And one of them turns around to the other one and he says, why don't you turn around and confront it? He wasn't the one talking to me. But as soon as I heard that phrase, I was like, I was like, that's it. That's it. I couldn't wait to go home and dream. I was like, Jesus Christ. I reach home, bam, 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 can't wait to dream, can't wait to dream. Fall asleep in the night. You know, like, all before you sleep, remember when you're inside, remember you're in a dream, remember you're in a dream, remember you're going to be in a dream, it's a dream, it's a dream. Bam, fall asleep, and child, in a normal dream, la, 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 la. Bam, it changes into the landscape that it changes into when you know that, and the thing starts to come. Well, all he turned around and confronted and all that, I throw that gun that went out the window one flicking thing, because this thing's so friggin' terrifying. Like, you know, it's pace. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, I think, and then, you know, I run and think, then bam, it starts to go slow, and the thing coming, and somewhere inside of there, all that mantra of me saying to myself, turn around and confront it. I remember, no, Ruben, you're in a dream. Turn around and confront it. Now, this is, I can't begin to tell you what that, because you can't turn around and you can't do that. That's just not done. You are the victim of this. This is a predator-prey relationship. This is not. But somewhere inside that little child, I get, you know, the power, the freedom to act. And I turn around, I hold the thing, I still don't know what it looks like or whatever, that kind of stuff, and I shake it and sing, leave me alone, like, who are you, whatever. You know, leave me alone, I throw it on the ground, and I wake up. It is like the first morning. This is like Hollywood stuff. I mean, shafts of light coming through. Now I tell you, like, I can see the atoms of light. When I tell you first morning stuff, like, you know, like, oh, like, you know, it's like, you know, I am like, and a weight that I did not know that I had, but existed on me as a child from all my, it was gone. It was gone. And I knew then that that was the way, that I had that power to do that thing. The thing that was the terror that was beyond terror, that I could do that. I never had the dream again. But not only that, because now I had this mantra that was given to me by two faceless boys sitting down in a classroom, not talking to me, whatever, that I then go into a dream and emancipate myself, that now emancipate psychological and all kinds of other things. I heal my family. Because I understand my father. I understand his pain and all those kind of things, but I still vex, right? And I'm still shorter than him by X, because I'm a really scrunty. I was always the smallest and youngest and stuff in the thing. As he's still 11 years old. He's a big hardback man. So the next time he has the belt, because I'm waiting for the moment, right? The next time he has the belt and that kind of stuff, and those kinds of things, I always say, you know, no. We talking. I say, I know why you're doing this, you know. And I give him back himself. Right? Because I'm reading Freud and Jung and I am the son of a sociologist and a home ec teacher who cares about people, who love people. She's a people person. She know people. She always heal, you know, she cooking for all the families who don't have food and that kind of stuff. She cooking for them and making sure that their children could go to school and whatever should, like, you know, like, so they don't have to deal with that, right? And I tell him, you know, I mean, I didn't say I cuss him, but I mean, I also get my rage out and whatever, but I let him know, like I see you, I know why you're doing this, you know, what, you don't have to do that, you know, whatever, and that kind of stuff. And it ends. The abuse ends. Right? That is why I am an activist and why I could do the things that I have done. Why they have a film industry with all the deep rebates and all the whatever, why they have a national trust that protecting all the heritage and that kind of stuff, why it have money for pan yards to go and rehabilitate their pan yards and that kind of stuff, whatever. Because I had the ability to speak truth to those people in power because of two faceless boys sitting down. But what it is to say is that we have to fight, right? We have to turn around and confront it. And it is it is terror beyond belief. But it can be done. And we are here because our ancestors did it. It was impossible, as I go back to Grosjean, it is impossible to believe and to vision that next thing. It is completely, in all the great imaginings that you could have, he could never, I mean, Wendell says like the 300 things are important. We colonizing them, right? Yes, we have our work to do. We have to remember who we are to make it make more sense and to make it do what it's supposed to do, right? But I am on Ladbroke Grove in 2023 and I am seeing 2 million people on Ladbroke Grove in London, right? Singing 4 generations of calypso and soca. Only 35% of those people from the Caribbean. All the rest is Europeans, West Africans, Middle Easterners, Americans. You know what I mean? We did that work. That's Grosjean. 4 generations. They sing in Kaiso that we don't even sing no more. All kind of Chinese and Japanese and things singing like, you know, going like under 35s. So if I have 2 million of them on that road singing those things, that means they come from households. So multiply that by 5, 10, 15, 20, and you get a sense, okay, right, that's about 20 million people then that we colonize, that we now doing that work. We are humanizing. We are the industries of joy, the culture of joy, the culture of West Africa, the culture of Native America, the culture of those things, the essence of those things is doing work, humanizing those spaces, doing that work. Yes, we have serious work to do. And everybody here spoke about one piece of that. And that big piece is memory. Mm-hmm. There are no institutions of memory. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Memory is, you know, this is civilization. Civilization is not what you do. Civilization is what you do with the things that you do. That is what civilization is, right? So the fact that you did something is only a small part, a fragment of the thing. Is what you now do with that thing. Having done the thing, you could now say, like, you know, having done that, that is something we want to repeat. That is something that's repeatable and we want to repeat that. Or that thing, that was a friggin' mistake. We cannot do that again. We must not do that again. But there are no institutions of memory in this space. So,
when you say
I would
no
say
institutions of
panyards,
memory.
though. I would say
Yes.
those kinds of
There are lots of
spaces hold
institutions of
memory.
No, they hold
I would
institution, but memory.
I would say
There
all our
are
many.
I would say
there are many.
91 years.
Yeah, just
To say there are no.
no, well,
No
okay,
institutions
all right.
of
I mean, so okay, so I'm being a little hyperbolic. I'm a little bit hyperbolic because we are all here having conversation about
You are
things from
inclined to
the
be
past.
hyperbolic.
Yeah,
I
but
appreciate that about you.
all of us, you know, like, but the thing is that the space in its mainstream in its mainstream things does not have institutions of memory. And the collapses that we are all talking about are because of that. You know that there are 300 world records, 200 and something world firsts, Emmys, Grammys, stuff, a series of folkways unparalleled in the history of the planet. And it's not there in institutions, it's not there in curriculum, it's not there in media, it's certainly not there in the utterances of our leaders. There are no spaces for people to matriculate in those things in mainstream spaces. So yes, we have the informal golden age spaces that we have a golden age, 1930 to 56. And those institutions that come up with it, like the Panyas, the mass camps, and those kinds of things, the panpipers, those kinds of spaces, the Orisha yard, all of those things are those spaces but even those spaces are threatened because they don't have the resources to create the transmissible things, and that is the enterprise of this moment.
Well, what is it? What are you trying to? What are you thinking about trying to transmit?
We know what we have to transmit because we've all been speaking about it.
No,
there are nouns, verbs, adjectives, pronouns, and stuff of those things.
No. What I'm asking, I think, is how are you thinking about reconciling operations within the mainstream when you're appealing to institutions of memory and action that emerged outside of the mainstream?
No,
the existence of Carnival and Calypso, right? Grosjean, et al., right? They come out of a space that were not just speaking back or pushing back on the mainstream. It was a repudiation of the mainstream.
Yeah, but there are also things that are coming out of another civilization where they were the mainstream. And so the thing is that Grosjean and all the traditional mass forms that are derived from Oro masquerade and those kinds of things were civilizational things that had mainstream institutions that made sure that they were transmitted, right? So they were the secret societies, and there were all those different societies and the different institutions. Oro is an institution in Yoruba land.
Yeah, but if there are secret societies, they're operating in spite of the mainstream.
No. That's not what secret society means. That's not what secret society means in those institutions.
Secret societies, public societies?
No, secret society means that the knowledge inside of those things is specialized knowledge. That's all. That's what a secret society
so it's not mainstream knowledge as such. Mainstream knowledge.
Yeah, but it's mainstream because those are the institutions of the society. That's what it means.
To do a little moderator.
Yeah.
I am very fascinated with the talk.
Yeah,
but we have a time.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me wrap.
Sorry.
Yeah. Let me wrap and stuff. Right. The thing is that these things do not get passed on by guests and by VAPs and by fumes.
True.
They get passed on by institutions, right? And you have to create the institutions to transmit those things. And we are past the phase of creating those things. The reason why West Indies cricket is second to last in the world is because we do not have the institution. The reason why Australia is 1 and 2 in the world is because they took Desmond Haynes and Greenwich and stuff and created the Australian Academy of Sports. Not just cricket, sports, out of the knowledge of those guys. And beaten us with ourselves. And we did not do it. We threw those guys away and all of the knowledge that them and all of the others had in them. We did not codify, we did not document, we did not consecrate, and we did not create the institutions of transmission. And that is the age that we are in right now. And we leave that off at our peril. And that requires discipline and organization. And it's not and it's something that we can't shirk. And it's all well to be talking poetics and intuition.
You see, there's a problem.
Wait. Imagination and all of these things.
But the thing is, it also requires discipline of institution building and those things, because that is what civilization is. One thing, resistance is one thing, but the other thing is to build. And so the moment that we are in is a moment also to build. Yes, we have to resist. We are at a moment where America, with all its misadventures in Iran and stuff, may be losing their Middle Eastern, South Pacific, and Asian empires. And that means, and they already have that in the agenda, to concentrate on Latin America and this hemisphere, and the Caribbean and Greenland. Right? What does that mean? When they come back here in that force, with surveillance and with all the different things, assassinations and stuff and exploitation and all those kinds of things. What does that mean, especially for us who are the major transshipment place between Latin America, Europe, and North Americas? What does that mean for us?
Well, we're living in it right now.
We are living in it right now.
In this moment.
But it ain't dread as how it's going to be once they wrap up the theater of operations over there and all their energy is now here. Okay. And so I'm preparing us for extra levels of resistance, but also to engage the huge civilizational act, the real act of freedom, which is the saying that I am, the big I am. If you're saying the big I am, it means you're committing to that I am. And that means I am going to create the framework and the institution that ensures the I am. That's it.
Thank you. So, close, and it's soft recaps because I like what Kevin say, at least the fear is to light the way for possibility. I love that. This is me getting a chance to talk, okay? All right. And then I was brought to tears by something else he said. Fortunately, he shifted from it. Craft oneself out of what constrains you. Interfered with my soul. And I think, and learn to teach yourself. And don't always be thinking that you were taught. So there were a lot of the word unbinding resonated really well, and it aligns with the uncolonizing. And I had said before, there was a line I opened with about the other side of fear, and there was also the line about don't be afraid of the terror, which I think Ruba Deri speaks of as well. And because in that change, you have to confront it. So between the stories of the two belts, the belt that was going to beat him and the belt that was choking Kevin, we have gone through a session here of what freedom could be, might be, what it isn't, and certainly what our responsibility is to craft some way going forward. And the design that Giselle spoke of, which is a responsibility to our future generations, is another very, very arresting thought that needs imagination. So I thank you for being part of our little huddle. I am very thankful and grateful more than that for these speakers to come at short notice, I'm not ashamed to say. And so that it makes me really feel fulfilled that some leverage can happen. So there is hope.
Well, it's respect for you, eh?
Yes,
it's respect
right.
for you.
Okay, well, that means there's hope for consolidation, there's hope for communing. And I appreciate that group so much, tearfully much, because I know that I've asked people whose time, their energy, their selection process of things that they do as well, and they chose to be here. I am really grateful. And I thank you for being an audience, even though a little diminished, because the time frame had 7 o'clock pickup.
This audience is the perfect size. This audience is the perfect size.
Let's a round of applause. Thank you so much. And get home safely.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you, everyone.
Don't go yet.
It's true. We need a group. So we need a Wi-Fi.
I want to such